Okay, can you hear me, everyone? Prepare paper 1. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see the screen.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Good. We will solve transport in mammals. I hope you... Okay, it is 69 pages. Let me see. I would at least solve with you the last 20 pages. I would like to solve the recent exams. So let's solve from 2020, June 2020. June 2020 is on page 508. So let's go to page 508. Yes, this is June 2020. If we solve together June 2020 and June 2021, that is 2 years in 3 exams. That's a total of 6 exams. Okay, so let's look at the first question. Now, what explains why the left and the right sides of the heart contract simultaneously? Simultaneously means they contract together. Why do they contract together? Because both atria have a sinoatrial node, because both sides of the heart are supplied by the same coronary artery, because the Purkinje tissues links the 2 sides of the heart, or there is no barrier to electrical excitation between 2 sides of the heart. Yes, Farouk?
There is no barrier to electrical excitation between 2 sides of the heart.
Yes, yes. All the other answers are wrong, okay? They don't both have a sinoatrial node, and they don't... 1 minute, because my battery is not right. Okay, so this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and it's D. Okay, the statements list some of the events in the cardiac cycle. They are not in the correct order. The order is very important. Now, what is the question? Which statement describes the third of these events to occur in the cardiac cycle? Kenzie, were you there when we discussed the cardiac cycle? Or you were absent?
Not yet.
Okay, Mariam, can you help me? What is the first event? The impulse travels through the Purkinje tissue, or a wave of excitation sweeps across the atria, or the atrioventricular node delays the impulse, or the sinoatrial node contracts, or the wave of excitation sweeps upwards from the base, that's the last step actually, the ventricles contract, that's the last step, or the atria contract. Now this question needs a little bit of focus. What is the first step?
Sinoatrial node contracts.
Yes, they mean the muscle around it, okay? And this is going to activate the sinoatrial node. So this is 1. Okay, what is 2? They want the third. After the sinoatrial node sent out a wave of impulses, what will happen?
The wave of excitation sweeps across the atria.
Okay, yes, correct. And then after the wave of excitation sweeps up...
The atria contracts.
Yes, very good, the atria contract. Then is this the third? Then it will be D. Okay, this is the third. Let's arrange the rest. After the atria contracts, what will happen?
The atrioventricular node delays the impulse.
Yes, and then?
The impulse travels through the Purkinje tissue.
Yes.
The wave of excitation sweeps upwards from the base of the ventricles and the
And
ventricles
just bring the
contract.
ventricles contract. Yes, so that's the most obvious answer, which is the atria contract. Let's see at the very end. Now, again, the graph that we talked about so many times. The diagram shows pressure changes in different parts of the heart during one cardiac cycle. During which period are the semilunar valves open and the atrioventricular valves are closed? Okay, now they are looking for the period of time where the semilunar valves will open and the atrioventricular valves are closed. Farouk, when do the semilunar valves open anyway? Where is the point that will make or that will cause the semilunar valves to open?
At like under B, near
Yes,
B.
it will open here.
Yes.
So during this period of time, the semilunar valves are open or closed?
Open.
Excuse me?
Well, there, the semilunar valves are open.
They will be open, and the atrioventricular valves will be open or closed? Closed. The atrioventricular valve opens here. So please memorize this graph. This graph is very frequent. Either they will get you the atrial systole and the ventricular systole and the diastole, which is the whole graph most of the time, or they can get you only the ventricular systole. In all cases, you have to know what happens at every stage in the cardiac cycle. At this point, the atrioventricular valve will close. My pen is not working again. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah, here at this point, so at this point, the atrioventricular valve will open or close, Farouk, at this point.
Sorry, miss, can you say again?
At this point, the point I'm marking, let's say point X, the atrioventricular valve will open or close?
Close.
It will close, okay? Because this is the beginning of the ventricular systole, and once the ventricles contract, they have to close. And then what happens in B?
B, the semilunar valve will open.
Yes, it will open. And why does it open?
It's so the blood can pass through.
And in C, which valves are open and which valves are closed?
The semilunar valves are open and the atrioventricular valves are closed.
Fine. Now what happens here in this part of the graph?
The atrioventricular valves open.
They will open. Very good. Okay. Now 32. 32 does not look like a nice question. Which diagram shows the events that occur during the transport of carbon dioxide by the blood? Okay, now let's look at A, B, C, and D. When you have a question that doesn't look nice like this one, you will choose the wrong answers first. So you will answer by exclusion. I'm going to remove the wrong answers and I will only be left behind the, what's this called? The correct answers, hopefully. Now let's look at A. A, you have the carbon dioxide. It will enter inside the red blood cell. The carbon dioxide reacts with water in the presence of the carbonic anhydrase to give you, what's this? Is this correct? When the carbon dioxide reacts with water, what does it give you? What should it give you?
Carbonic acid.
Carbonic acid. So A is right or wrong?
Wrong.
A is wrong. Okay, now let's look at B. I have carbon dioxide. If it enters the red blood cell, the carbon dioxide will react with water. And there's another option. The carbon dioxide can react with hemoglobin to give me carbaminohemoglobin. Is this right or wrong? Something is not correct here. The carbaminohemoglobin, there are two arrows. The carbaminohemoglobin is either outside the red blood cell or inside the red blood cell. The hemoglobin, does it ever go outside the red blood cell?
No.
No. Let's continue. The carbon dioxide plus the water in the presence of the carbonic anhydrase will give you carbonic acid that will dissociate into hydrogen ions and the hydrogen carbonate ions. This part is correct. But here, The carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin to give you carbaminohemoglobin. It's correct, but the carbaminohemoglobin is obviously in the plasma, outside the red blood cell. So I don't like this part. The hemoglobin never goes out of the red blood cell. If I am on an exam and I'm not sure of an answer, I can do a question mark. Let's look at C. Carbon dioxide will enter the red blood cell. Inside the red blood cell, either it reacts with water or it reacts with hemoglobin. Fine. If it reacts with water, it will give you carbonic acid that will dissociate into hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. If it reacts with hemoglobin, it will give me carbaminohemoglobin, and obviously the carbaminohemoglobin remains inside the red blood cell. So what do you think, C is right or wrong? Anything wrong about C? No, there's nothing wrong about C. Let's look at D. D must be wrong. Carbon dioxide here reacts with hemoglobin to give me carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, reacts with water to be in the presence of carbonic anhydrase to give me carbonic acid. The carbonic acid is outside the red blood cell. I don't know why. It should stay inside the red blood cell, and then it will dissociate into hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. So which letter is the most correct? What do you think?
C.
What did you say?
I said C.
Yes. Who said C? Who is with me and said C?
Me.
Kenzie?
I'm Kinsey, yes.
Okay, very good. Now, did we do any mistakes? Did we choose D, D, C, C?
No.
We did not do any mistakes. Okay, very good. Now, let's go to the next exam. The next exam is June 2020. The photomicrograph shows 3 white blood cells labeled X, Y, and Z. Now, my pen is not working. This is something that's really annoying me. Which row correctly identify these cells? Which cell is round and has a large central nucleus that completely occupies the cell? What is X?
The lymphocyte.
Yes, correct. X is the lymphocyte. So this means that C and D will be wrong. A or B, the answer is
B.
A or B. Now, Z is what? The cell that has...
monocyte.
No, the monocyte is the cell that has a kidney-shaped nucleus. So Y is the monocyte. Y should be the monocyte. And we said X is the lymphocyte, so most probably the answer is A. And cell Z, yes, I have the lobed nucleus, so the answer is A. I said the answer. I don't want to say the answer. Next time you will say the answer. Okay, 29, graphs. Graphs are very important. The graph represents data on blood vessels and blood flow. Which row correctly identifies the curves? Now, there's a key here. And then you have the artery, and small arteries and capillaries and small veins and veins. Fine. Now, if you look at one of the blood vessels, let's say the artery. What should these 2 graphs be? The speed or the pressure or the total cross-sectional area in an artery? What is very high?
Pressure.
Pressure, of course. And the pressure, because I have 2 graphs. So one of them should be the pressure. And the other one should be the speed or the total cross-sectional area. What do you think?
The speed.
Yes, of course. The arteries, they pump blood with high force, high pressure, high speed. So these 2, okay, should be this solid line and this dotted line. And then what is very low in the artery? The speed or the pressure or the cross-sectional area, the lumen, in other words.
Cross-sectional area.
Yes.
Cross-sectional area.
Very good. I think we all agree. Now, which row gives me what we just said?
C.
Let me see. Y, yes. Y is the speed. Very good. So the speed should be high, and Z is the pressure. It's high, and X is the total cross-sectional area. Yes. If I only look at the arteries, and if I look at another blood vessel, for example, which blood vessel has the lowest pressure?
The veins.
The veins, excellent. So if we look at the veins, they have 2 low, you have 2 graphs here. The dotted one is Z. The Z is what? So the Z should be very low. We said the pressure, so it should be here. Yes, I think we are also correct. And then the dotted line, X, is the total cross-sectional area. And in the vein, what is high here? The Y, the speed. The veins, what will make you sure of the vein is that it has the lowest pressure. So again, it always takes us to C. Yes. I can't hear you. Who is speaking?
Oh, sorry.
You have a question?
No, I just opened my mic and
It's okay. Now, which components of the blood are present in the lymph? Now, these questions concerning the blood and the tissue fluid and the lymph, I want to tell you something, that everything is present in all three, but the problem is that we have different proportions. Like in the blood, we have more of the blood proteins, especially the red blood cells that never leave the blood. In the tissue fluid, we have more waste products. And in the lymph takes, or the lymphatics takes, excess tissue fluid. So waste products are also present in the lymph, but they are more in the tissue fluid. The lymph contains more white blood cells and antibodies because they are the site of white blood cell production. Okay, I just want you to understand that. Now, which components of blood are present in the lymph? The lymph, does it contain white blood cells? Yassine?
Yes.
Yes, of course, it does contain white blood cells. So the answer is not C or not D. I will exclude answers. It makes it easier to exclude answers. The lymph, does it contain proteins?
I don't think so.
You don't think so. I just told you that, wait, I'll tell
It
you something.
contains all three, but in different proportions.
Yes, exactly. And also, we said that the lymph contains white blood cells. We will study in the lesson immunity that the white blood cells produces antibodies, and antibodies are proteins. So yes, they do contain proteins, but not the blood proteins that are found in the capillary, not red blood cell, for example.
Yeah.
And they only said proteins, they generalized. Does it contain sodium ions, which can be a waste product?
Yes.
Yes. So what will you choose? A or
A.
A? I would choose A also. Let's see if we are correct at the very end. Now, 31. What correctly describes the significance of the increase of the red blood cell count of humans who move from living at low altitude to high altitude? Okay, who will answer this question? Let's read together A, B, C, D. After a few weeks at high altitude at the top of the mountain, the number of red blood cells increased to compensate for the low availability of oxygen in the air. Can A be right or wrong?
I think it's right.
Right.
It
Because
looks
the percentage
reasonable.
of the oxygen, it's very low.
Yes, it's very reasonable. Let's look at the rest. The rest should be wrong. B, I hope you're not looking at the answers. At high altitude, the bone marrow produces more red blood cells to provide binding sites for the increased number of oxygen molecules available. Kenzie, is B right or wrong?
I think it's wrong.
Correct. Why is it wrong? Do I have increased oxygen?
No.
No, I don't. Yes, the red blood cell increases, but I don't have oxygen. Okay? At high concentrations, the idea, okay, if they ask you, why are the red blood cells increasing? Why then? We don't have more oxygen. On the contrary, we have less oxygen. Then why are we producing more red blood cells? So that we take more oxygen from the air or less, or what? Why are they producing more red blood cells?
Because we need more oxygen.
Yes, to compensate for the decrease. We have little. So we will produce more red blood cells so that we can hang on or bind or take in more, even though the total amount of oxygen in the atmosphere is less. Let's look at C. At high concentrations of oxygen in the blood, high concentration, a cytokine stimulates the production of red blood cells to increase the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Now, we did talk about this hormone that is produced from the kidney. Did I ever say anything about cytokine?
No.
No, it's the erythropoietin hormone, EPO, erythropoietin hormone, not C, not cytokine. After only a few days at high altitude, the number of red blood cell increases considerably to compensate for the lower availability of oxygen. Farouk, is D correct or wrong?
It's wrong.
It's wrong. You know why D is wrong? Because they're playing around with the words. Yes, the number of red blood cells will increase, but it will not increase considerably. Considerably means it will increase a lot only after a few days. It should take weeks or months. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. So D is wrong only because they're playing around with words. So what's the answer? We said A. Okay, did we do any mistakes or not yet? Did we?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, hopefully we won't. Now let's look at June 2020. Always start with the recent exams, okay? Variant 1-3. Okay, which statements about blood vessels are correct? Collagen fibers in the walls of arteries and veins prevent overstretching. Kenzie, what do you think? Right or wrong?
Right.
Yes, of course, right. Elastic fibers in large arteries allow stretching during ventricular systole. Farouk, right or wrong?
Right.
Right. Smooth muscles and arteries control the distribution of blood to different parts of the body. Mariam, is this right or wrong? And tell me why, if you think it's right.
Right, because I think it helps with contraction or relaxation, so it controls how many blood passes through.
Excellent. Of course, any muscles contract and dilates, so it will control the diameter of the blood vessel and of course the amount of blood reaching that part of the body. Okay, Yassine, veins, they have valves because their walls are thin. Is this the reason why they have valves?
No.
No. So we need an answer that will include 1, 2, and 3. So which is
B.
B? Okay. When we focus, by the way, paper 1 is not hard. It gets hard when you are not paying attention to the questions. The photomicrograph shows 3 white blood cells labeled X, Y, and Z. Which row correctly? I think we answered this question before. Yassine, can you give me an answer? Z.
I don't know what's a monocyte.
A monocyte, my dear, this is one type of the white blood cells that have a kidney-shaped nucleus. It's large and the nucleus looks like this, just like Z. Z is a monocyte. And then if it has a lobe nuclei, this is a neutrophil. A lymphocyte is Y, where it is round with a large central nucleus that occupies most of the cell. And we'll study them in detail in the next lesson, in the lesson immunity. So which row correctly identifies the cells? What is cell X?
It's a neutrophil.
Yeah, actually that's the only answer, neutrophil. Okay, cell Y, lymphocyte, correct. Cell Z is the monocyte. So the only obvious answer is D. Okay, the enzyme carbonic anhydrase catalyzes this reaction, Farouk. Carbon dioxide plus water will dissociate into hydrogen carbonate and hydrogen ions. Which statements describe the role of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase? Can you give me an answer?
Yeah, speed of
Okay, let's look at 1.
well, 1 is correct.
1 is correct. Wait, be patient. To speed up the decrease in pH of blood in the presence of carbon dioxide. To speed up the decrease in pH. Now, this is a little bit of chemistry here. When you have lots of hydrogen ions, what will happen to the pH value? Increase or decrease?
It will decrease.
Yes, it will become more acidic. So 1 is right or wrong?
Right.
Right. To facilitate the Bohr effect, is this right or wrong?
Right.
Okay, stop here. What does this mean? What is the Bohr effect?
It's when it's like with the affinity and when the graph shifts down.
Very good, excellent, thanks you. This is when the graph either shifts up or down because there's a change in the affinity of hemoglobin. So of course it will facilitate the Bohr effect. The hemoglobin, its affinity to oxygen will increase or decrease if I have more hydrogen ions.
Will decrease.
Correct. Very good. To speed up the reaction between carbon dioxide and water, does the enzyme do that?
Yes.
Definitely yes. So the answer is definitely A. So 30 is easy if you just know this part fairly well. Now the graph again. The graph shows the oxygen dissociation curves of adult hemoglobin at 2 partial pressures of carbon dioxide, W and X. Okay, Mariam, can you tell me why did this curve move from X to Y? Due to an increase or decrease in affinity?
Decrease in affinity.
Good girl. So it will move from curve X to curve Y because there is more CO2 or less CO2?
More CO2.
Correct. Perfect. Okay, which pair of statements are correct? Read and tell me. Let's read together. Curve W shows the oxygen dissociation curve at a higher concentration of carbon dioxide than curve X. This is W. Wait, curve W shows at a higher concentration. Is this right or wrong?
Right.
Right.
Yes, we just said it. Maryam just said it, that W shows you when there is more CO2. Now, curve X, this one, the upper one, shows the oxygen dissociation curve at a higher concentration of carbon dioxide than curve W. Right or wrong?
Wrong.
It has to be wrong because it's the opposite of what we said at 1. 3. At a partial pressure of oxygen of 7 kilopascal here, the hemoglobin from curve W has a higher affinity for oxygen than hemoglobin from curve X. Let's look at this. So, which has more affinity? Yassine, W or X?
X.
X. And what did they say? They said W or X?
We said W.
So 3 is right or wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong, correct. 4. At a partial pressure of
It's
oxygen.
the opposite, so it's correct.
It's the opposite. Let me read it. From curve S has a higher affinity. Yes. So what is the answer? Maryam was supposed to be answering. What's the answer for this question?
B.
B. Yes. Again, if you don't know anything about this curve and you don't understand it, you will find this question very tough. Okay. A person who has I think we did this in class. A person who has 2 blood tests 1 month apart, the number for each type of cell in a fixed sample size is counted. So we are looking at the red blood cells and the lymphocytes. Now the first test is normal and normal. After 1 month, what increased? Both of them actually. Okay. When the red blood cells increase, what does this mean? Why would a red blood cell, this is not normal for someone's red blood cell to increase. Lymphocytes, when they increase, usually you have infection. Usually. But red blood cells, when it increases, what does this mean?
They move to a higher altitude.
Yes, definitely they were exposed to some sort of hypoxia or decreased oxygen levels, so the body will try to compensate for that by increasing more or producing more red blood cells. What could this suggest about the person based on the results? They're talking about body temperature, moving to high altitudes, and ATP synthesis. What will you choose? Will you choose in the move to high altitude column any no? Will you choose A or C?
No.
No. So you will cancel out A or C. When you cancel out letters, it makes it easy. So you will choose from B or D. When you have more red blood cells and you move to high altitude. Remember the list that we took in class? What else increases?
The body temperature.
Yes, because we said that there's an increase in the mitochondria. So there's increased energy production and increased body temperature. I just gave you the answer. Okay, did we do any mistakes? I think we solved this question in class. Did we get all this right or didn't we?
Yes, we got it all.
We did.
Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is one of the lessons that has at least 5 questions in paper 1. So please pay attention to this lesson. If you noticed, paper 2 questions were easy. They were straightforward. Which are present in the walls of capillaries? Now this question is easy also. Yassine, tell me. What is present in the wall of the capillary?
Endothelium?
Definitely. Okay, so I will choose A or B. Will I choose C or D?
No.
No. So let's remove those so that I have less options to choose from. What else is present in the wall of capillaries? Is anything else present?
No.
No, just a single layer of endothelial cells. So
Endothelium.
that's A. Yeah, it's very easy. Okay, again, the same question for the 10th time. No, I will not answer it. Okay, let's answer it. خلاص. Which row correctly identifies these cells, Kenzie? What is X? I think you memorized it by now.
Access monocyte.
Yes. So this is the only option, C. Okay, answer this one, Kenzie. Which sequence of letters correctly identifies the order of events during the cardiac cycle? Now, questions like these need a little bit of focus. Didn't we answer this in class?
Okay. I think we answered it in the before
Okay, let's just
in
make
the
sure
previous page.
the question. No, it's not the same, not the same. Tell me, what's the answer?
V is the first.
The first. Okay. If it's the first, then B, C, and D should be wrong. Let's look at B. We start with W. Wave of excitation passes down the Purkinje tissue. And then U. Impulse is delayed. Is this correct? Is B correct?
No.
It's definitely wrong. I don't even need to continue. Okay. Now let's look at C. C also should be wrong. X, it starts with wave of excitation spreads from the sinoatrial node. It looks good to me. And then T, atrial walls contract. Okay. And then
T is the last one.
what did you say? Atrial walls
I
contract.
said T is the last one.
No, it's when the ventricles contract. Let's look at U. Impulse is delayed for a fraction of a second. No, it's wrong. Yes, it's right. So T here, the atrial walls contract, and then impulse is delayed. Until now, it's correct. Let's read the remaining order. V. Wave of excitation enters the atrioventricular node. There's a mistake here. The wave of excitation should enter the atrioventricular node, and then it should be followed by the impulse is delayed for a fraction of a second. So the mistake is in U and V. It should be V and then U. So C is wrong. Do you know where the mistake is? Let's look at D. Does anyone have any questions? Let's look at D. Farouk. We start with X. The wave of excitation passes down the Purkinje tissue. And then V. The wave of excitation enters the atrioventricular node.
Wrong.
It's totally wrong. This is completely wrong. So A looks like it's the only right answer. Okay, again, who do I have Abdullah here or he's not here? Farouk. The graph shows the effect of 3 different partial pressures of carbon dioxide on the oxygen dissociation curve for human hemoglobin. I have X, Y, and Z. X when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 3, Y when it is 5, and 7, and Z when it is 7. Okay, what effect does decreasing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide have on hemoglobin? Farouk, give me an answer to this question without looking at even A, B, or C, or D. If I have less CO2, how will this affect the affinity of hemoglobin to oxygen? Increase. I'm very happy that you understand this part. Okay, so what effect does decreasing the partial pressure of CO2 have on hemoglobin? Let's read it together. It is less efficient at taking up oxygen. Do I even continue?
No.
No, I don't continue because it will be even better at taking up hemoglobin. B, it is less efficient at taking up oxygen. Do I continue?
No.
No. So C,
No.
let's see C. It is more efficient at taking up oxygen and less efficient at releasing oxygen. What do you think of C?
Yes. It's correct.
Yes. In other words, the hemoglobin will bind to the oxygen and love it so much it will not even want to release it. So C looks right. Let's look at D. It is more efficient at taking up oxygen and more efficient at releasing. Can this be correct?
No.
No, they cannot be opposite each other. So obviously the answer is C. 32. What is correct about the transport of carbon dioxide by blood? Maryam, give me an answer. The enzyme carbonic anhydrase catalyzes the formation of carbonic acid in red blood cells. What do you think of number 1?
True.
Of course, okay. Carbon dioxide diffuses from active cells to red blood cells and reacts with water. What do you think of 2?
Correct.
It's very correct. 3, carbonic acid dissociates, forming hydrogen ions that combine with hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. Does the carbonic acid dissociate, forming hydrogen ions that combine?
It dissociates, but it doesn't combine to make carbaminohemoglobin.
Yes, the hydrogen ions, when they combine with hemoglobin, what does it produce? The hydrogen combines with hemoglobin. Does it give you carbaminohemoglobin? It gives you hemoglobinic acid.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the wrong part. It's not carbaminohemoglobin. Carbaminohemoglobin, this is when the carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin, it will give me carbaminohemoglobin, correct. But the hydrogen ions, when it binds with the hemoglobin, it gives me hemoglobinic acid. So this is wrong. I hope you notice that they ask you about every single detail. So what's the answer, 32?
B.
Yes, correct. Good girl. Did we do any mistakes or not yet? 1,
Not yet.
2, 4, 5. 5 questions per exam. Wow, not yet? Okay, good. 2020. We're still in 2020. Okay, Kenzie. Why is the mammalian circulatory system described as double circulation?
It's B because the blood flow twice, not
First circuit, yes. Why is it not A? Blood flows twice through the heart in one complete cardiac cycle. Why is it not A?
it flows through the circuit of the body, not the cardiac cycle.
The cardiac cycle is atrial systole, ventricular systole, diastole. It's got nothing to do with the, did we say in the cardiac cycle that the blood will travel 2 times?
No, not yet.
No. So it's not A. So what did you say? You said B?
Yes.
Okay. Now, answer also 28. Which sequence of letters correctly identifies the order of events during the cardiac cycle? I'm not.
Doctor, it's the same question as we answered before.
Are you sure?
Yes.
مش ضروري, no. Look at it. Wait a minute. Let's look at the other answer. The other question. What answer did we choose? Did we choose C? Didn't we choose C? The other answer?
No, I can't remember.
It was A.
We chose A. Okay, let's see if A is right. V. Wave of excitation enters the atrioventricular node. Okay, W. Wave of excitation passes down.
It's not in order. The answer is, I think it's C.
It's not A, no. Let's look at B. You think it's C? Let's look at C. V. Wave of excitation enters atrioventricular node. And then U. Impulse is delayed, correct? And then W. Wave of excitation passes down the Purkinje tissue. Okay, Y. Ventricles contract. تمام. X. And then from the sinoatrial node, from the beginning. T. Atrials wall contract. Yes, C looks correct. But this means that B and D have to be wrong. Let's look at D. X. Wave of excitation spreads from the sinoatrial node and then it goes to V. What is V? Wave of excitation enter. No. There is something missing here. It has to make the atria contract first. So D is wrong. Are you with me? Do you know how I noticed that D is wrong? Farouk, let's look at B. B has to be wrong, Farouk. What is X? Wave of excitation spreads from the sinoatrial node and then it goes to U. What is U? The impulse is delayed. Does it delayed?
No.
No, there's something wrong. It has to mention the atrioventricular node. So B is wrong. So the only one we have correct is C. So the answer should be C. We'll see in a minute. Which factors affect blood pressure, Farouk? The diameter of the blood vessels? Yes, of course it does. And the systolic pressure of the heart ventricles? How hard, in other words, the ventricles contract?
Yes.
This effect, of course it does. And the volume of blood entering the heart?
Yes.
Of course it does. So what's the answer?
A.
A. Okay. Okay, 30. The diagram is a summary of the role of the hemoglobin in the transport of carbon dioxide. Yassine, before I even read the question, help me complete all these equations. Carbon dioxide in the plasma, okay, will enter the red blood cell. Now, what is one? How does it enter the red blood cell?
By diffusion,
Yes, we will take it still in cell membranes. Any gas?
facilitated diffusion.
Okay. No, actually, it's not facilitated diffusion. You're wrong. Facilitated diffusion, we still did not take it yet, but let me explain it. When the cell membrane has a channel protein to help in the diffusion of molecules, this is called facilitated. Gases, we will study that oxygen and carbon dioxide can cross the cell membrane without the help of any transport proteins. So it is just simple diffusion. It's not our problem now. But when the carbon dioxide enters the red blood cell, it reacts with 2, Yassine. What is 2? What does it react with?
Reacts with water.
Yes, correct. So 2 is water. 2 has to be water. In the presence of 3, in the presence of an enzyme, what is 3?
The carbonic anhydrase.
Correct. Good boy. To give me 4, what is 4? Carbon dioxide.
Carbonic acid.
Excellent. Carbonic acid. Don't get confused, okay? You have carbonic anhydrase, carbonic acid. Sometimes you get confused. And then this carbonic acid will dissociate into 6 and 7. What is 6 and 7? What is 7?
One of them is hydrogen ions.
One of them is hydrogen ions, correct. 7 is what? The hydrogen or the hydrogen carbonate ions?
Hydrogen carbonate ions.
Why did I say it is the hydrogen carbonate? Because it is going where?
Outside.
Very good. And what will come instead?
Chloride.
Chloride. And this is called the chloride?
Chloride shift.
Good boy. Perfect. Okay, the hydrogen ions is 6. It will react with 9. What is 9? These hydrogen ions, what do they react with to prevent a decrease in the blood pH?
Hemoglobin.
Excellent, hemoglobin. Now, this part can be tricky. The hemoglobin here will give me oxygen. Why does it give me oxygen? Because this hemoglobin was not just hemoglobin, it was oxyhemoglobin. The hemoglobin, year 11, is always bound to something. It is either bound with oxygen, or it is bound with hydrogen ions, or it is bound with CO2. The hemoglobin is always bound to something. It will give up one thing to bind with something else. So 9 is oxyhemoglobin. The hemoglobin was bound to oxygen. It will split and release the oxygen to the respiring tissues and bind with what instead?
The
Hydrogen.
ions.
Exactly. It will bind with the hydrogen ions. So 8, I don't know if they will ask you about 8, but 8 is when the hemoglobin leaves the oxygen. 8 is called unloading or dissociation. So here I am unloading, or I am dissociating. I'm releasing the oxygen. Now, that's why, how did I know? Because there's an oxygen here, and oxygen was released. Now, what is 10? When the hydrogen binds with the oxygen, it will give me 10. What is 10? Let me change color. 10 is what? Hemoglobin plus hydrogen ions. It was Yassine who was speaking. It will give me 10. What is 10? Hemoglobin, hydrogen ions plus hemoglobin, Yassine. What is this molecule called? Where did you go? Hello?
Is it carbaminohemoglobin?
No, my dear. It's hemoglobinic acid. Remember it. Hemoglobinic acid. Okay? For everyone. Hemoglobin binds with oxygen to give me oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin binds with carbon dioxide to give me carbaminohemoglobin. Hemoglobin binds with carbon monoxide to give me carboxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin binds with hydrogen ions. The hydrogen always comes before the hemoglobin, will give me hemoglobinic acid. Remember them. You still did not study this lesson, I know. Okay, now what is 11? Look at this. The carbon dioxide will enter the red blood cell, and the carbon dioxide, we said there are 2 possibilities. Remember the diagram in the notes? When we said, I have to open something. When we said the carbon dioxide either reacts with water, or the carbon dioxide reacts with what? The carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin. You are correct. Yes. Again, let me remind you. The carbon dioxide either will stay in the plasma, or it will enter the red blood cell. In the plasma, the carbon dioxide either reacts with water, or it will not react with water. It is as simple as that. It will just dissolve. It will be carbon dioxide in solution. Now we are in the red blood cell. In the red blood cell, tell me, Yassine, the carbon dioxide will either react with what or with what?
It will either react with the hemoglobin.
Yes, correct. Or
the water.
Or the water, correct. When the carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin, I just don't have here. What will it give me? What is the name of this molecule, hemoglobin and CO2?
Carbaminohemoglobin.
Correct. When it reacts with water, it will give me the equation that we are talking about. Okay, if you study it this way, hopefully it will be very easy. Now let me go back to the exam, but it's not letting me. 1 minute. Yes, okay, so we made a nice complete mess. Let me erase all that. Now, if you have paper 1 in front of you, right, what is 2? What is 2?
2 is water.
2 is water. What is 3?
It's the carbonic anhydrase.
Carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Good. What is 4?
Carbonic acid.
Excellent. What is, by the way, what is 5? It's another enzyme. It's the same enzyme, by the way, carbonic anhydrase enzyme, in case they ask you. What is 6 and 7?
Hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions.
Perfect. What is now 10? What is 10 when the hydrogen ions binds with the hemoglobin?
Hemoglobinic acid.
Yes.
أيوة.
So 10 is the hemoglobinic acid. What is 11, my dear? When the carbon dioxide reacts with the hemoglobin?
Carbaminohemoglobin.
When the carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin, carbaminohemoglobin. Very good. What's 9? 9 is not only hemoglobin. 9 is what?
Oxyhemoglobin.
Oxyhemoglobin. Okay, now we said everything. We did not leave anything out. Which answer is correct after all this?
C.
Let me see. C, 3 carbonic anhydrase, correct. 9 oxyhemoglobin, yes. 11 carbaminohemoglobin, yes. Okay. Now, if you did not study this part, you will definitely not get this question right. Okay, 31. The graph shows the oxygen dissociation curves of hemoglobin from 2 species of mammal S and T. Farouk, which statement could explain the difference in the oxygen dissociation curve? Now, Farouk, the oxygen dissociation curves, what does it tell you about the hemoglobin?
The affinity to oxygen.
Affinity, exactly. So, where is the affinity mentioned here? In 1 or 2 or 3? Read it and tell me.
2.
Let me see. 13.
Yeah,
Species
2.
T has a lower hemoglobin concentration in its red blood cells than species S. It has lower hemoglobin? No, not lower hemoglobin. It has more CO2 or less oxygen. So 1 is wrong because
Yeah.
the hemoglobin content should be the same. The hemoglobin in species T has a lower affinity. Yes, it has a lower affinity. The same hemoglobin, but different affinity. So 2 is correct. 3, species T lives at high altitudes. How did we know? Maybe species T is just moving more or respiring more. We can never be sure. They did not say that there's an increase in the red blood cell count. So what's the answer?
C.
C. You all understand why? We got C. Yes, correct. Now, are all our answers correct? This horrible question, was it correct?
Yes.
It's 30. We
Yes.
said C is 30C. Let me see. Yes. Good. Very good. Okay. Mariam, which are present in the walls of veins this time, not capillaries? Give me an answer. We're still in 2020, God. What is present in the veins, Mariam? Endothelium, smooth muscle, elastic tissue, collagen fibers, or all of them, or what? Hello?
All of them?
All of them, of course. All of these are present in veins and in arteries, but in arteries, I have thicker tunica media, don't forget, and I have the smooth muscle and elastic tissue and collagen fibers in the tunica media. In the veins, I don't have collagen in the tunica media. Okay, which row is correct for the location of a type of molecule or cell? Where is Kenzie?
Yes, doctor.
Tell me. They did not talk about proportions. They are talking about the type of molecule present in the blood and the lymph and the tissue.
The antibodies, the blood must contain antibodies, so the first one is wrong.
Yes, the blood contains everything. Plasma proteins.
No, I don't think.
1 minute, well, we have to know why. Plasma proteins, it's definitely in the blood. And plasma proteins, it's present in the lymph. If we are talking about white blood cells, then we have white blood cells. Okay, tissue fluid will have white blood cells only if there is an infection. Again, they're not talking about the proportions. Then all of them will be present. Lymphocyte,
So
for
the
example,
answer is lymphocyte.
it will be present in all three, yes. Okay, but of course it will be
Doctor,
most present in the lymph. Yes.
isn't plasma proteins not like plasma proteins shouldn't be in the tissue fluid?
Yes, they did not mention which, Yasin. They're not specific. Plasma proteins, if they said specifically red blood cell, of course it will not be present in the tissue fluid. But plasma proteins, some of them are small enough to move out of the capillaries. Like the neutrophil at time of the, what's this called? At the time of infection, it can squeeze out of capillaries to go and do phagocytosis. We will study that in immunity. So the proteins can be present at times of infection, but they did not specify which type of protein. If they had said red blood cell, the red blood cell will never be in tissue fluid and will never be in the lymph, but they just said proteins. Can we look at the
Okay.
answer? 1 minute. What is 29? Maybe what I'm saying is totally wrong. 29 is C. What did we say? 29, did we say C?
It's right.
Yes, okay. Now let's look at 30. Yasin, tell me, what effect does decreasing carbon dioxide concentration have on hemoglobin? Tell me, hemoglobin will have more affinity to oxygen or less affinity? When I have less,
It will have more affinity to oxygen and it's
Correct.
less efficient at releasing it. So C.
more efficient. Yes, I think we did this question before. Why
Yes,
does
we
the
did.
red blood cell count increase in humans as they start living at high altitude? Mariam, give me an answer. More carbon dioxide. What's the answer, my dear? It's easy. To allow more CO2 to be excreted by the lungs, is A correct?
No.
No way.
B.
It's not correct at all. B, to allow more oxygen to be taken up by hemoglobin. Yes, we'll have more red blood cell, more hemoglobin, more oxygen as the partial pressure. It looks right to me. C, to allow more oxygen to be taken up by the lungs, not by the lungs, by the red blood cells. Okay, so C, I will be confused between B and C, but B is more correct. D, to allow more oxygen to be transported as the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen is lowered. More carbon dioxide? No, on the contrary, it will be increased. So D is wrong. So what will you choose, Mariam, B or C?
B.
B. Okay. We did any mistakes or not yet?
Not yet.
C, not yet? Okay. Finally, we are in 2021. Let's finish this year. 3 more exams and I'll let you go. The statements list some of the events in a cardiac cycle. Yasin. The statements are not in the correct order. Who do I have here? Okay, Yasin, tell me. Which statements describe the fourth of these events? This is not a nice question. Tell me, Yasin. What's the first event?
Can I? I'm just gonna read them first because I didn't
Okay.
read them yet.
Okay, go ahead. No, I think I spotted the first event. What's the first event? It always starts with what, Yasin?
The
Which,
atria contracting.
okay, what will make the atria contract? Which node will become activated? Huh? Which node will be activated? The sinoatrial node or the atrioventricular node?
The sinoatrial.
Yes, so the sinoatrial node contracts. Why do they say contracts? Because it is in the wall of the right atrium. And this wall is a muscular wall. Okay, so the sinoatrial node, this has to be number 1. When the sinoatrial node contracts, what will happen next?
It will.
Choose between 2 and 7. A wave of excitation sweeps across the atria, or the atria will contract. What comes before what?
A wave of excitation.
Yes, of course. So this is 2. So I will cross this out. And then,
The atria contracts.
yes, this will be 3. Logic. And then after the atria contract, these wave of excitations, where do they go?
They go to the Purkinje tissue.
Before that, don't jump.
They get delayed.
Okay, who will delay them? You're correct. Who will cause the delay? Which
The atrioventricular node.
Yes, so this will be number 4. The atrioventricular node delays the implant for the fraction of a second. And then after the delay, what happens?
After the delay,
It will pass through.
the wave of excitation sweeps upwards from the base of the ventricles.
Habibi,
Oh no,
you're-
it passes the Purkinje tissue.
Yes, correct. And then the wave of excitation sweeps upwards from the base 6, and the actually
The
missed bundle of
ventricles.
His. The bundle of His will come before the Purkinje tissue. And the last thing, the ventricles contract. Now, what do they want? They want the 4th. So we said number 4 is this. So the answer should be B. Is it B? We'll find out later. Okay. Which row correctly identifies components of both lymph and tissue? Again, they did not talk about proportions. So what's the answer, Maryam? No, here they said red blood cells. Red blood cells, are they found in the lymph? Are they found in tissue fluid, Maryam?
No, they're too
No.
big.
They're definitely not there. But everything else can be there. Antibodies, of course, because the lymph is actually the source of white blood cells, and white blood cells produce antibodies. So antibodies, yes. Tissue fluid contains, of course, antibodies. If the lymph contains antibodies, the tissue fluid will contain antibody. Why? Because the lymph takes the excess tissue fluid. Sodium ions can be a waste product, white blood cells in times of infection. So the red blood cells will not be there, but the rest will be there. So what's the answer, Maryam?
B.
Correct. Good girl. Okay, Kenzie, which row is correct for the mean blood pressure in different parts of the human circulatory system? You have the right atrium, and then the artery in the arm, and then the vein, and then the capillary. Okay, Kenzie, where's
The artery has the highest blood pressure
This is very correct. Now, why did you choose that the artery has the highest blood pressure, not the right atrium?
because it has smaller lumen.
No, Kenzie. I'm talking about the atrium in the heart and the artery in the arm. The atrium in the heart, the right atrium, Kenzie. It pumps blood from where to...
I got confused, sorry.
The right atrium pumps blood from where to where?
I can't remember.
No, you can. I have a picture here of the heart in front of you. And this is the right atrium. When the right atrium
The
comes
ventricle.
just to the ventricles below it. So it will just push it down. So does the right atrium need to pump with very high pressure or very high force?
No.
No. Why am I asking you this question? Because I want you to choose from one of the 4 that will have the highest mean blood pressure. The atrium or the artery in the arm or the vein or the capillary.
The artery in the arm had the highest blood pressure.
Very good. So I will choose either A or B.
Or B.
C and D, I will cross them out. Now, what has the least pressure, the vein or the capillary?
The vein.
The vein. So it will be A or B?
A.
A. I found out from the artery in the arm the most pressure, and the vein has the least pressure. So it has to be A. The capillary has more pressure than the vein. Remember the capillary bed? And we said that the vein is the last vessel in the capillary bed. The pressure is highest from the artery, and then arteriole, and then capillary, and then vein. The vein has the least pressure. So the answer should be A. Do you all understand how or why we chose A? Any questions? Farouk, which mechanism accounts for the way most of the carbon dioxide is transported? If carbon dioxide dissolves in plasma and carried in solution, most of the carbon dioxide, does it travel like this?
No.
No. B. Carbon dioxide, is it converted to carbaminohemoglobin inside red blood cells? This is not wrong, but is most of the CO2 carried this way?
No.
No. Carbon dioxide is converted into carboxyhemoglobin inside red blood cells?
No.
This is definitely wrong because carboxyhemoglobin is the making of hemoglobin plus carbon monoxide, not even carbon dioxide. So C is definitely wrong. D, carbon dioxide is converted to hydrogen carbonate ions.
Yes.
Yes, of course. This is very obvious. Now 32. Mariam, the graph shows the dissociation curves for hemoglobin at two different partial pressures of carbon dioxide. At which position on the graph, A, B, C, or D, is the concentration of hemoglobinic acid lowest? Mariam, tell me, it will be lowest when I have the most oxygen or the least oxygen?
Most oxygen.
Good girl. So at which point do I have the most oxygen on the graph?
C.
Yes.
C and D, but C has higher affinity to
لا
oxygen.
لا C, of course. Okay. 33, Mariam again. The table shows the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and oxygen in two blood vessels. I can see the pressure in pulmonary artery and then the vein, and nearly the numbers are the same, but the jump is in the pulmonary vein, there's an increase in oxygen. What explains the difference in the partial pressure of oxygen in the pulmonary artery and vein? Read and tell me. This lesson is the respiration, but I think you can answer it. Does the oxygen diffuse from the alveoli to the capillaries? From the alveoli means from the lungs. Is this right or wrong?
Wrong.
Why? The oxygen, then where does the oxygen? It's right.
Yes, I thought أنا أساسا red blood cells. Okay.
No, from the alveoli means from the lung to the capillaries. A is right. CO2, does it diffuse from the lung to the capillaries?
No.
No, in the opposite direction. I exhale CO2. Oxygen, does it diffuse from the body cells to the capillaries?
No.
No, in the opposite, the capillaries gives the cells oxygen after I take it from the lungs. Carbon dioxide diffuses into the body cells from the blood in the capillaries. From the blood or from the cells? Not
From the cells.
It comes out of the cells, yes. So the answer has to be A. Okay. For which graph shows the effect of carbon monoxide on the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen? We said carbon monoxide is a catastrophe. When the hemoglobin sees the carbon monoxide and it will have oxygen, the hemoglobin will bind with carbon monoxide, Farouk, or oxygen? Who will it choose? Carbon monoxide. It will forget the oxygen altogether. And it's a very stable compound, and oxygen is completely as if it does not exist. So which graph represents the drastic change in affinity when there is carbon monoxide?
A.
Did you look at the mark scheme?
No, because when there's less carbon dioxide,
I'm talking about carbon monoxide, not carbon dioxide.
Yeah, carbon monoxide. It will bind with carbon. It will bind with oxygen more, the portion, because it will have more affinity to the oxygen. So when there's more oxygen than carbon monoxide, bond of carbon monoxide more.
Farouk, the hemoglobin will bind with more oxygen or more carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide?
Carbon monoxide.
Yes. Okay.
It's carbon monoxide.
It will bind with carbon monoxide, and no matter, even when the partial pressure of oxygen increases, the percentage saturation with oxygen will not increase. It will stay the same because it will keep on binding with carbon monoxide. Here, this also shows B can never be right, because B means the affinity of the hemoglobin increased or decreased. When the graph moves up like this means that the affinity of hemoglobin, Farouk, increased or decreased. The hemoglobin,
Increased.
Increased, and we have carbon monoxide, so the affinity will not increase. So B is wrong. It's definitely wrong. B happens when you are exposed to more oxygen, not less. Now C, there is a decrease in affinity. Why didn't you choose C, even though there's a decrease in affinity? Why did you choose A? A is correct, by the way. Why did you not choose C? The decrease in affinity is more in A or C. A and C both show you a decrease in affinity. But which one shows you a greater decrease in affinity? A or C?
A.
A. C, there is a little bit decrease in affinity of hemoglobin. So C can happen in normal situations while you're exercising, for example. not when you are exposed to carbon monoxide. So A is correct. Now D, here, does in the presence of the carbon monoxide, will the affinity increase? This is telling you that the affinity increased in the presence of carbon monoxide. Is this correct?
No.
No. So D and B is definitely, they are both definitely wrong. Do you all understand this question? This question is not very nice. Anyone has any questions over this question? Okay, we finished. Wow. Any mistakes?
Not yet.
Very good. Okay. Let's do this exam. Kenzie, the sinoatrial node initiates the cardiac cycle. What is the correct order? Again, the order in which the chambers of the heart contract. Quickly, Kenzie, we have 2 more exams.
Both atria, then both ventricle.
Correct. If anyone has any objections, tell me. The graph. This is for Yassine. The graph shows pressure changes in different parts of the heart during a mammalian cardiac cycle. W, X, Y, and Z indicate when a valve will open or close. Which row is correct? Now, you just have to look and tell me. W, Yassine, the valve opens or closes here at W?
Which valve?
They did not say. I was going to tell you when you tell me. At W, which valve will close? Huh? I'm trying to help you.
Isn't W like atrial systole?
W is the beginning of the ventricular systole. Yassine, this part is the atrial systole. This part. When the pressure increases so much, this is the ventricular systole. When
the semilunar valves open?
When do they open? At W or X? Yassine.
I'm not sure.
Why are you not sure, Yassine? Why? How many times did we talk about this? 1 minute. Okay, where is this graph, Yassine? It is right there. It's gone. Where is the graph? It vanished. Here. Yassine, here. Look. Year 11. Year 11, you have to all know that this graph is showing you the cardiac cycle, the 3 stages of the cardiac cycle. You have the first curve is the atrial systole. And then the second big curve, when the pressure greatly increases, this is what you're seeing. Atrial systole is followed by which systole?
Ventricle systole.
Yes, ventricle systole. So all this, the contraction of the ventricles. When the pressure starts to drop, my dear, all this relaxation of the heart, the relaxation of the heart is which part of the graph?
Which part where it decreases?
Yes,
diastole.
diastole. Now, this is the point where the ventricles start to contract. If you forgot the anatomy of the heart, the ventricle will contract. In order to prevent the backflow of blood, which valves will close, Yassine, when the ventricles contract?
The atrioventricular valves.
Very good. So this is the point where the atrioventricular valve will close to prevent the backflow of blood. The blood is in the ventricles. It will enter into the arteries. So what is the valve that will open so that the blood enter into the arteries?
The semilunar?
Yes. When the pressure increases a little bit, the semilunar valve will open. Pressure is increasing, pressure is increasing. The moment the heart starts to relax in diastole, which valve will close to prevent the backflow of blood?
The
semilunar.
blood,
exactly. The blood will enter the artery. Now the heart will start relaxing. The blood can go backwards. We don't want the blood to go backwards. So the valves in the semilunar and the aortic in the aorta, the aortic valve will close and the pulmonary valve will close, or the semilunar valve will close to prevent the backflow of blood. Clear? Going back to here is the atrial systole. You have these graphs in your notes, exactly these graphs. The ventricular systole is here, the second curve, and the diastole is from the beginning of the decrease in the blood pressure until the beginning of the small curve. All this is the diastole. Clear? Clear
Yes.
now? Okay. So going back to the question. 1 minute. Okay, so Yassine again. What is the valve that will close at W?
The atrioventricular.
Of course. And what is the valve that will open at X?
The semilunar.
Correct. What is the valve that will close at Y?
The semilunar.
Correct. What is the valve that will open at Z?
The atrioventricular.
Correct. Now choose an answer, my dear. What's the answer for 28?
C.
What did you say?
C.
C. Okay, we'll see later if it's correct. Now we want to finish. What can combine with the heme group of the hemoglobin molecule? I think we did this in class. What are the two molecules that compete with each other? Mariam.
C.
What did you say? C? C? What did you say?
B.
B, 1 and 3. Yes, of course. Carbon dioxide binds to the hydrogen in the amine group. So it's 1 and 3. Yes. 30. Mariam, answer again. What is the main reaction occurring in blood capillaries at the gas exchange surface in a human lung? Carbonic acid dissociates into carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Does this happen at the lung?
No.
Okay, let's look at B. Carbonic anhydrase converts carbon dioxide into hydrogen carbonate ions.
No.
Carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. Which page is this? Okay, I just showed you the answer. Mariam, what is the main reaction occurring in the capillaries at the gas exchange surface at the lung? Look, I want to tell you something. We always use this equation, carbon dioxide reacting with water to give us carbonic acid, H2CO3, that will dissociate into hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. What happens at the lungs is the exact opposite. At the lungs, the hydrogen ions and the hydrogen carbonate ions, they meet to give you carbonic acid that will dissociate into, or it will break down into carbon dioxide and water, and carbon dioxide and the water will become exhaled. So let's read A again. Carbonic acid, this acid, dissociates into carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Is A right or wrong?
Wrong.
Okay, B. Carbonic anhydrase will convert carbon dioxide into hydrogen carbonate ions. This happens at the lungs.
No.
Carbonic anhydrase will convert carbon dioxide into hydrogen carbonate ions. This is the correct equation, but it doesn't happen at the lungs. It happens at the respiring tissues when the carbon dioxide reacts with water. So it's not at the lungs. So B is wrong. C. Carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin.
Wrong.
Wrong, because we want to get rid of the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. Do we want to, carbon dioxide is produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. Is D right or wrong?
Right.
D, carbon dioxide is produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. I want to question, what is this exam?
It's May, June 21, variant 2.
Okay, this is which number?
30.
What did you say? What is the answer?
We said D because for
Okay,
lungs,
correct. Why
opposite
did you see
occurs.
the, yes, the opposite happens. Now, this is a very confusing question. I want everyone to understand, why did Maryam choose D? We memorized a particular equation. We said, let me open a screen again. We said, when the carbon dioxide is released from the tissues, in other words, I'm respiring, I will release carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide will react with water in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme to give you carbonic acid. I think you're now very familiar with that. That will give me hydrogen ions and then hydrogen carbonate. These two, we said, are waste products, and they will eventually have to meet at which organ? What is the organ that will be responsible for excreting those waste products?
Lungs.
The lungs. I hope you're all with me. Now, what happens at the lungs? The opposite. At the lungs, these two will meet. So at the lungs, the reverse equation will happen. The hydrogen ions will react with the hydrogen carbonate ions. Who will bring the hydrogen ions? The hemoglobin. It will carry the hydrogen ions. Who will bring the hydrogen carbonate? The plasma. Doesn't it move or doesn't it diffuse out of the red blood cell? Are you all with me? Hello?
Yes.
The hydrogen ions will be brought in by the hemoglobin. The hydrogen carbonate will be carried by the plasma. At the lungs, they will meet and they will give me carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid will dissociate to give me CO2 plus water vapor. And these two will be what? Exhaled. I will exhale it. I will get it. I'll get rid of it. So they are asking you what is happening at the lungs, not at the respiring tissue. So I will have to look for an answer that produces CO2 because I want to exhale it. So let's look at D. Why did Maryam choose D? Because at D it says that carbon dioxide is produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. Yes, the hydrogen carbonate ions will combine with its friend. It will meet with the hydrogen ions in the presence of the carbonic anhydrase to give you carbonic acid, H2CO3, that will break down into carbon dioxide and water. So the answer is D. Okay? When the carbonic acid dissociates into carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions, this is incorrect. The carbonic acid, it dissociates into carbon dioxide and water. That was the mistake. That's why A is wrong. Do you all understand why A is wrong? Are you all with me?
Yes.
In order to understand this question, you have to write the equation in front of you, the reverse. The moment you see the word lung, write the equation in the opposite direction. Hydrogen ions will react with hydrogen carbonate ions to give me carbonic acid, H2CO3, that will dissociate into carbon dioxide and water, and I will exhale the carbon dioxide and water. A was confusing because it said that the carbonic acid dissociates, okay, into carbon dioxide, correct? And it said hydrogen ions. This is the wrong part. Not into hydrogen ions, into water. So A is wrong. B, carbonic anhydrase will convert carbon dioxide into hydrogen carbonate ions. This is correct, but not at the lungs. This happens at the respiring tissues. So B is wrong. C, carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. Again, this is right, but this will not happen at the lungs. At the lungs, I want to produce CO2. I want the CO2 to exhale. So the only answer is D. Carbon dioxide is produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. See, the carbonic acid here will dissociate into carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. The carbon dioxide was produced from what? Was produced from hydrogen carbonate ions by carbonic anhydrase. Are you all with me?
Yes.
Okay. From the hydrogen carbonate ions here. It gave you carbonic acid that dissociated into CO2 and water. A is wrong because it said hydrogen ions. Hydrogen ions cannot be wrong. Are you all with me now? Do you understand why 30 is D? Some questions are much more difficult than others. Carbon dioxide is produced from what? From the hydrogen carbonate ions. The hydrogen carbonate ions are here. It will give me carbonic acid, that will give me CO2 and water. Now 31, which reaction takes place in the blood that is passing through the active tissues? So here I am at the respiring tissues, I am not at the lungs.
One is correct.
Let me see. Hemoglobin will dissociate. Yes, of course. At the active tissues, I would release oxygen. So 1 is correct. 1 is correct. Now 2. 2 is correct or not correct? I have oxyhemoglobin. It will find the hydrogen. It will leave the oxygen and bind with the hydrogen. Is this right or wrong?
It's correct.
Correct. Okay. 3, hydrogen carbonate plus the hydrogen ions will give me carbonic acid. This happens at the tissues or at the lungs?
This happens at the lungs.
At the lungs. So 3 is wrong. 4, the water will react with the CO2 to give me carbonic acid. And then it will continue, but they did not write the continuation. Right or wrong?
Yes, right.
Yes. So what's the answer?
It's C.
1, 3. No,
No,
3
I
is
mean,
wrong.
I mean
B.
B.
It should be B. Okay.
Yes.
So let's look. Ada, where is 31? 27. Did we say 27B? Did we got
Yes.
27 right? Okay. We said 28 is what? We said 28 is C. Is it correct?
Yes, all of the answers are correct.
Okay. Where is 31? It's not there? No, we have to know. What is this exam? June.
It's May June 21, variant 2.
Let's open it.
Are we gonna solve another exam?
What do you think? You're tired? May, June. 1 minute. If this question is right, we will not. If it's wrong, we will.
Okay.
Okay? So it is, we said May, June 2021, variant what?
Variant 2.
Variant 2. What question is that?
It's 31.
Did we say B? We're right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, add it. Maybe the number was forgotten. So, خلاص, I gave Yassine a word. I told him if it's right, we will not continue. Yes, Yassine, but you will do the exam. We did around 20 pages or we didn't? Okay, I'll let you go because I promised you if it turned out to be right, I'll let you go. I don't need to tell you how important this is. So please, we will not be able to solve everything in class. I hope we can. Even with an extra online session, the classified cannot all be solved in class. So I will try my best to solve 50% of paper 1 and paper 2 of every lesson. Okay, so please, you have to do the rest at home. And if you have a question, send me anytime, even if it's at 2 a.m. in the morning. When I see the message, I'll eventually answer you. Any questions before I go?
No,
No.
thank you, doctor.
You have a test. Wait, don't thank me. You have a test. You have a test on biological molecules. But I will be nice enough and I will ask you, when do you want to have this test? Next Wednesday or next or the following Sunday? Decide and tell me, okay?
We don't have lessons on Sunday.
Why? Oh, I mean the following Monday.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day. See you Monday. Bye.